I am so excited to do this series with you. If you just signed up and you haven't done lesson one that is in the private replay page, that's okay. You don't have to have done that lesson to really benefit from today's lesson, and you can go back and do that lesson this weekend. And I'm so excited. We're going to have so much fun. This work will change your life. It will change your perspective on what's possible for you. It will change your perspective on who you are and how you see yourself and how you relate to yourself. I love it so much. Okay, so I'm also, Doodle Your Emotions is the foundational information of Heartwork Journaling. And whenever I do Doodle Your Emotions, I give away a one-year scholarship to Heartwork Journaling University, which is where you can take all of this work deeper. And we are going to be awarding the scholarship tomorrow. So here's how to enter to win the scholarship. And the person who wins is going to get this Heartwork Journaling University supply kit. And I will open it tomorrow to show what is in the kit. And here's how to enter. You will answer these two questions, and let me bring it in a little bit closer. How to apply for the scholarship. I want you to answer what is one aha, a new perspective, or a breakthrough that you got from this series so far. So that may be from today's class, that may be from the lesson one video if you've already watched it or when you watch it. And then the second question to answer is, why do you want to be considered for the scholarship? What would you do with this work? Would you work on a specific goal? Would you work on your relationship with yourself? And ideally, this scholarship is going to go to somebody who wouldn't normally be able to sign up for anything else. I always want to make, every time I do Doodle Your Emotions, I want to make this available to somebody who wouldn't be able to invest any further in themselves. And that's one of my ways of giving back to my community of doodlers. And so answer those two questions, and then you will put your answers in one of these two places. Comment at the very bottom of the private replay page, and you will find how to get there from any email. Or if you prefer for your information not to be public and you want to just kind of keep it private between Team Heartwork Journaling and yourself, then you can also email the answer to these two questions to hello@heartworkjournaling.com. And so that's how to apply for this scholarship. Also, there are always a lot of people in Doodle Your Emotions, and you are going to have questions. And I keep the Q&As just for me, because I want everyone to be focused on their own page, on their own work. A long time ago when I started doing these, I used to do them in a pop-up Facebook group, and I was teaching about stopping comparing. And people were putting their doodles and saying, oh, mine doesn't look as good as yours. And when people chat, for me it's very distracting, and also you're not doing your own work. So that's why there's no chat visible to anyone. And here's how to ask a question. If you have a comment, fantastic, I want to hear them all. And so that it's really efficient and I'm able to see the questions that you have about the work, please, in the question box, with your question, put #question. And that's going to help me to identify the questions quickly, and that way it's as efficient as possible. And then somebody was asking, Jean was asking for the email to submit your application for your scholarship. That would be hello@heartworkjournaling.com. And if you ever have any issues or you can't get into the members area, always use hello@heartworkjournaling, and Team Heartwork Journaling is super fast and they love taking care of you. So don't ever hesitate to email us there. Okay, now we are going to get into the doodling. And the first doodle that we're going to do several doodles today, and we've got a lot of doodling to do. I want you to be really kind with yourself and follow along with me. It doesn't have to look perfect. Let your doodles be whatever happens on the page. Sometimes my little doodles look like chicken scratch. That's okay. part of this work, I believe, is allowing yourself to accept whatever comes out on the page and not have to have it be perfect. Perfectionism can keep us stuck so many times. Okay, so we are going to do the first doodle about our primitive brain. And this first doodle is really foundational because we have to understand our brain so we can really understand ourselves. And there's two parts of our brain. So the first thing I want to do is, oh, you know what? A couple of people are asking about the how to apply. So I'm going to flash that on the screen again if you want to take a photo of it. But this will also be in all of the emails from now on. So here is how to apply. What is an aha, a new perspective, or a breakthrough you had from the series so far? Why do you want to be considered for the scholarship? Comment on the private Doodle Your Emotions page or email hello@heartworkjournaling.com. And again, that will be in every single email, so you're not going to miss anything. Now let's doodle our primitive brain. And what I want you to do, let me get rid of this little banner so we have all the space that we need. You're going to do a triangle. And then inside the triangle, we are going to doodle a little representation of our primitive brain. And I usually do this as a little cave person. So we've got our little cave person's head and then a little bone. And I'm going to get a little bit closer. Some of you may be on your phone. So this is our primitive brain, why it feels so darn hard. And here is our little doodle. And then we're going to give our little primitive brain a little primitive outfit. It's a skin of some kind, because that's what our forefathers, foremothers used to use. So that's our little primitive brain. And I put a little smile because our primitive brain is just trying to keep us safe. And that's what it's done for however long you think we've been in existence. That is what it has done. And our primitive brain has something called the motivational triad. So we're going to write motivational. And this is a concept by Dr. Douglas Lyle and Dr. Alan Goldhamer. And I used to study myself so much, and this triad has helped me to have greater understanding of why I am the way I am. And it's helped so many of my students do this also. So the first thing that our primitive human brain evolved to do is, we're going to do a little 1 here, and conserve energy. That's what it wanted to do. That's what it evolved to do. And we're going to do a couple of doodles to represent what it means to conserve energy. So I'm going to put a little doodle of myself in bed. We've got our bedposts, our little face under the covers, and we just want to stay under the covers. And this is us conserving energy. And one of the ways we do that is by saying, I'll do it tomorrow. It's not really an emergency. Another way that our brain wants us to conserve energy, so this could be conserve energy or be efficient. That's another way of thinking about it. And second way is by thinking the same recycled thoughts over and over and over again. So I usually do my little face kind of looking down so we can see our brain, and I'll put my brain inside of my little head. And so we just recycle old thoughts and beliefs. And think about it almost like there's little highways. There are little neuronal highways in our brain, and they think the same thoughts. And these are well-worn paths. And it's just so much easier for our brain to recycle all the old thoughts and beliefs. And in a way, that was a great thing in the olden days, a long, long time ago when we were cave people. Now it's not so great. We need to think new thoughts if we want to create new results in our lives. We want to cultivate new beliefs, and a belief is just a thought you've thought over and over again, or a small collection of thoughts that you've thought over and over again so many times. The grooves are really deep in the brain that you believe those thoughts are facts. And then we're going to do one more little doodle up here for conserve energy, and that is we want to feel the same feelings over and over again. We have our top most familiar feelings. They're easy to access. They're easy to feel. For some people, it might be anger or jealousy. For some people, it might be appreciation. For me, my top most familiar feelings used to be things like shame and despair. So this is one of the things that our brain evolved to do. And we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of painting. I don't want to take too much time on this because there's a lot of information today, but we're going to paint our little doodles. And our brain actually is the organ in our body that uses the most amount of calories. So thinking new thoughts, focusing on new tasks that we haven't done very much before, takes more energy, it takes more calories, and our primitive brain doesn't want us to do that. So it comes up with all kinds of justifications. That's what my brain does. You want to feel the same feelings over and over again. Okay, and you can keep coloring that in, but I want to move on to the second thing. So the second thing, and you will get a PDF with all of these doodles, so don't worry, you're not going to miss anything. So the second thing that this part of our brain evolved to do is to avoid pain. And oh my goodness, we will do anything to avoid pain. And this can mean avoid emotional pain or also avoid physical pain. And think about it, that was really good because it kept us away from the saber-toothed tiger. That was really, really important. So we're going to create a couple doodles to represent this. And this doodle is staying in the cave to avoid pain, to avoid getting out of your comfort zone. And so this might be not doing the uncomfortable. And I'm going to put staying in the cave. Not asking for the promotion, not asking for the sale, not asking the person on the date, not sitting down to write the book because that takes focus. I think a lot of procrastination is this, just us trying to avoid the pain of having to make our brain focus. Another way that we avoid pain is I'm going to do a little doodle of an obstacle. And so you can think of those runners who run those obstacle courses, and they're called hurdles. And so this is any obstacle in our lives. Our primitive brain avoids pain by, when we see an obstacle, we think the obstacle is a stop sign. Instead of thinking, hey, if I try to overcome this obstacle, if I try to go over this obstacle, I may fall down a few times, but I'll also create the mental, emotional, and behavioral muscles to actually get over the obstacle. Nina, I love it. Nina says, I love Doug Lyle. Yeah, this is such a beautiful concept. I love it so much. And I actually used it. I have a little bit of water that fell there. I've created a second triad that's kind of the answer to this, based on 2 decades of coaching people and doing this work myself. And that's the next thing we're going to do. It's called the visionary triad. So here's our obstacle that's a stop sign. So let's use red. Jean says, this is a lot like growth mindset. Yes, totally. I love growth mindset. And I do think that it's so important. Okay, here's our little staying in the cave. This is what I used to do. When I was first trying to grow Heartwork Journaling, it was so scary for me to be seen and to live stream. And so I avoided it so much until I realized, oh, if I keep doing that, I'm not going to help people, and I'm not going to create the thing I want to create most in my life. Okay, this third one is seeking pleasure. That is what we evolved to do. And so think about that. We had the pleasure of food. And so we had to come out of the cave to go and seek that pleasure. And food was not as scarce and abundant as it is now. So we were very motivated to go seek that and go stock up on it. But now it's not helping us very much in our modern world, because we've got things like all kinds of apps on our phone. Burger and fries at your door in 10 minutes or less. Or even alcohol delivery to your door in 10 minutes or less. Different shopping apps. Buy, and we're getting this pleasure, which is, it used to be great in the olden days when there wasn't a lot of pleasure. Now it's constant. And so my doodle for that is a tiny Jabba the Hutt. And if you have ever seen any of the Star Wars movies with Jabba the Hutt, this is my little pleasure-seeking part of me. Tiny little hands, needy little hands that want gimme, 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 gimme pleasure. And then some of the false pleasures, I'm going to put a little thing that says FP, FP, FP. That means false pleasures, like overindulging in food or overindulging in alcohol, things like that. Gimme, gimme, gimme. And so what happens is many times we numb our emotions with false pleasures. Oh, Anonymous, you can do this lesson before the pre-recorded lesson. It's totally fine. Since you're already here and have your paper and pen. Okay, now I'm going to do I'm going to paint our little primitive self. And remember, you will get the replay, so you won't miss anything of what's here. So this is our primitive brain, and this is why it feels so darn hard in our modern world to create the results that we want. So now we're going to move on to my answer for the primitive brain, and this has helped me so much to see that our primitive brain can be a problem in our modern world many times, but our visionary brain, the other part of us, our prefrontal cortex, is the answer and the solution to that problem. So we're going to start out the same exact way. We're going to make a little triangle, and then we're going to look at the three things that the visionary part of our brain evolved to do. Okay, so let's do our little triangle. And we're going to put visionary triad. And I'm going to put in here a little doodle that I think represents my prefrontal cortex, the visionary part of ourselves. And it's got a little graduation cap on. So that's our little visionary self, our little graduate, who has tools that can help us overcome the problems that come with our primitive brain. So what are the things that our visionary triad evolved to do? Well, number one is generate energy. And we do this in different ways. And it's such a amazing gift that we've been given, this part of our brain, our prefrontal cortex, the visionary triad. And what it helps us to do is we're going to do a little cave again. Except this time, we're coming out of the cave. We're saying, you know what? There's something that I want to do. It's something is worth me getting out of my comfort zone for. So that's one way we generate energy, come out of the cave. And that takes energy. The good thing is that our brain, we can generate energy with our thoughts. And we can think and practice new thoughts. This is one of the most amazing gifts of being human. So we'll have a new thought, and then by practicing it, we'll make that groove deeper and deeper and easier to think. That's really one of the things that Heartwork journaling really helps with. Seeing the thoughts that are creating unwanted results, and then finding new thoughts and practicing them, trying them on. And another thing that we are privileged to do as humans is that we can feel new emotions. And we can process feel, and process. Deborah says, yes, it is so easy to stay in my comfort shell and stay home and avoid interaction with life. I want to break away from this and be free. Oh, I love that. That's so good. And here's the thing. One of the most important things that I want you to know is that wanting to stay in your comfort zone means that you have a normal functioning human brain. There is nothing wrong with you. I used to think that there was something wrong with me, that I was scared to do X, Y, Z. But even when we procrastinate, when we stay in the cave, when we tell ourselves, I'll do it tomorrow, when we recycle old thoughts and we create the same results over and over, like that really is a normal human brain. So I love that part of this work is about accepting ourselves. Okay, now let's go to the second part of the visionary triad, and that is, and these really are the reflection of each other. And one of the things that we can do with our visionary brain is accept and even embrace pain. I know, but hear me out. One of the ways that we can do this is by allowing ourselves to actually feel uncomfortable emotions instead of numb. So feel emotions instead of numb them. Because our human body was created to feel all of the emotions. Okay, so accept and embrace emotional pain. I want you to think about any goal, and I'm going to make a little trophy here as a representation of a goal. Think of any goal that is something that you want to create, and maybe you have it in your mind, that you are, maybe you wrote a book, maybe you asked for the raise, maybe you decided that you want to be a leader in some capacity, and maybe you ran a marathon, something like that. None of that happens without pain. And think about the emotion of courage. Many times you need courage to go for a dream. Many times you need vulnerability to even tell yourself the truth about what you want to create in your life. Courage and vulnerability are not great feeling emotions. Courage always includes either fear, pain, or grief. And if it didn't, it wouldn't be courage. So accept and embrace emotional pain. We're also going to do here on this side an obstacle as well. And so with any obstacle, think about running up to the obstacle and trying to jump over it. It's any obstacle, any roadblock in your way toward creating what you want. Think about trying to get over it. You're probably going to fall. And maybe you're going to fall several times and you're going to fail, and that is going to be painful. And even when you are going over the obstacle and you're creating those mental, emotional, behavioral muscles, that often doesn't feel great. But here, an obstacle is a grow sign. Every time I see an obstacle now in my life, I'm like, every problem is a project. This is just something that's going to help me grow, instead of turning it back and saying, oh, that didn't work, which is what most people do. So we're going to paint our little obstacle green because it means go. And then there's one more part of the visionary triad. And so I'm actually going to put here a color for this little broken heart doodle that's representing feel emotions instead of numb. Recently, I've had a lot of grief in my life that I had been trying to avoid. And I realized by doing this work that I was trying to avoid grief. And so now I've been opening myself up to it. And the grief is my dad has advanced bone cancer and dementia. And so I had to find a place for him, and we found several places, and finally we found one that was a good fit. But the grief of him not recognizing me anymore, and many of you may have similar experiences. I was eating sugar, and I didn't feel like working out for several months. And so I used this work to follow my actions, my behaviors, to find out what was happening. And I realized I was trying to resist the grief of what was going on. And when I saw that, when I saw exactly what was my thought and my emotion, I started working out again. I opened myself up to, oh yeah, this is grief. This is part of life, part of the tapestry of a human life. We're going to feel grief when we have relationships. And now I'm feeling instead of numbing again, which is so great. And I also want to share that because this is my opinion, and I want you to use what works for you, and don't take everything I say. Some people want to take it all on as their own. Every single one of us is going to have different thoughts and different emotions that works for us. But when I was able to, what I want you to know by sharing this is that I have a primitive human brain, and my primitive human brain wants to conserve energy, wants to avoid pain, and it wants to seek pleasure. So I use this work to help myself when I'm in those moments of why am I wanting to eat sugar? Why am I wanting to not work out? What's going on here? Instead of beating myself up for it. So I want y'all to know that even the people you most admire, who you think have it all together, they have a primitive human brain too. Okay, now let's go to the third part. And this is delay pleasure. Delay pleasure for the future you want to create. So let's say you have a goal. Let's put goal here. And some people downgrade their goals, or they don't even let themselves set goals anymore because they've beaten themselves up so much for not reaching goals. I used to be one of those people. And now I know goals are just a container for your growth. And when we can go for the goal, but not be attached to the goal, oh my goodness, it's so much more fun and so much more easy to get there. So this is going to be us looking through binoculars or through a telescope at our goal. We've got our little face looking in, looking at the goal. And we're thinking, this is where I want to go. So we've got the pleasure of creating the goal, but knowing that, hey, if I want to get there, maybe if I want to lose a little bit of weight, maybe I don't eat the dessert. If I want to have the book published, maybe I delay the pleasure of procrastinating, of the relief of procrastinating, because I want to sit down and work on the manuscript. So this is one of the ways we delay pleasure, which is an amazing gift that we can use our brain to imagine what it's going to be like and delay that pleasure. It's something that is uniquely human. We really are like a miracle, our brain. Okay, so this is our visionary triad. So you can finish the rest on your own. Oh, Catherine, I love that. Catherine says, this is awesome. Thank you. Taking this course was being a visionary. I love that. That's awesome. Okay, so you will get that in a PDF if you want to keep doing the details and things like that. Now we're going to do a doodle called Things That I Think Are a Saber-Toothed Tiger. And so this doodle happened because many of my clients, and I started evolving Heartwork journaling with my one-on-one coaching clients and with my own work, and I still do my own work. I like the work with my dad. I also do a lot of work with the goals in my business and being more visible and being seen. And this doodle came out of helping people see that the scariest thing wasn't actually that scary. It isn't actually a saber-toothed tiger. So there's a couple of prompts. Let me make sure there's a few prompts. Things I think are a saber-toothed tiger. The prompts are to imagine what they are. And I'm going to give you some examples. What are you afraid of? What do you keep putting off? What do you worry about? What creates a surge of negative emotion in your body? Now, I'm not talking about the kind of negative emotion that happens when you're walking down a dark alleyway and you see a shadow. That's really good. That's when it's good to be like, oh, this might be a saber-toothed tiger. I'm not talking about the kind of surge of negative emotion when you're going to cross the street and a bus is coming. That's beautiful. That's the part of our brain that serves us so well. But there's so many things in our lives that create a surge of negative emotion that isn't serving us. So let's look at some examples. Those are things like making mistakes. For some people, it is not okay to ever make mistakes. I used to be one of those people. When I would send an email with a misspelling, I would have a shame storm. It was terrible. For some people, failing. For other people, being criticized, or other people's opinions. Maybe the bank balance is something that you're thinking is a saber-toothed tiger. Maybe the number on the scale. So you avoid it at all costs. Maybe emails or phone calls. When I was a one-on-one coach in the very beginning, anytime I saw an email, I thought for sure, you know, my client hates me, they want a refund, I'm in trouble, I didn't live up to the expectations. That's always where my brain went. Or if the phone rang, I was like, I know something bad happened. So some of these you may resonate with and some of them you may not, and you may come up with some of your own, which is beautiful. Being rejected. For many people, being rejected, hearing no, is like a saber-toothed tiger. Driving, for me, for a while, I used to have terrible anxiety and panic attacks. I had gotten divorced, and it was just a terrible time in my life, and it was debilitating. So I would get so scared driving. Being seen or not being seen, for some people, not being seen, not being acknowledged is like a saber-toothed tiger. Dating. For me, it used to be any form of communication from the IRS. I thought, oh, I'm definitely going to jail. Now, we actually changed the name of my business a couple of years ago, and I was still doing a lot of the things like that in my business. Now I don't, which is great. But I remember communicating with the IRS and it was delightful. They were amazing. It was so fun. Okay. So we're going to do a little doodle of ourselves and we're going to make it the primitive self. So here I've got my little bone accessory. And I'm actually going to do a little doodle of a female and also of a male. And you can do whatever you want, whatever is right for you. But we have more and more men doing this work every day. And last time we did Doodle Your Emotions, somebody asked me about this, so I want to so you could do it like that. Or he could be wearing one of these outfits. Whatever you want to doodle is perfect. So we have ourselves. And then we also have the saber-toothed tiger. So we're going to do a little doodle of a saber-toothed tiger, a large saber-toothed tiger with huge teeth. Not a very happy one, not a very nice one. And of course, huge claws, very scary. And I think tigers are the ones with stripes. And the saber-toothed tiger is saying, "What's for lunch?" And we are saying, my primitive brain did come in handy, because it did. But now it's not serving us. So we can appreciate it for when it did serve us. And one of the things I want you to recognize is that when we allow the primitive brain to think that these things are a saber-toothed tiger, we are rejecting our dreams and our goals and who we want to be in the world in advance. We end up staying in the cave and we end up rejecting ourselves. So I'm going to write reject myself in advance. And learning to understand that these things are not a saber-toothed tiger and coming out of the cave to work with them is such an amazing way of growing. Okay, we're going to paint our little doodle. If y'all want to share what some of y'all's are, that would be fun. And right now, I'll tell y'all mine are being seen on larger platforms. We're going to start doing advertising on streaming cable. And when I think of that, I get a little bit scared. It's outside of my comfort zone for sure. Oh, okay. Somebody's asking, what do you mean by my primitive brain did come in handy? It came in handy when it really was a saber-toothed tiger that was coming for us. It came in handy when it is the shadow in the dark alleyway in the middle of the night that we need to pay attention to. But it doesn't come in handy when it's these things that are just a part of life and living that many of us allow to stop us. Okay, now I want to talk about, and you will get all of these, remember, so don't worry if you haven't finished or if you want to keep working on it, of course, do that. But now I want to talk a little bit about socialization, and then we're going to have one more doodle, a much simpler doodle to end with today. But socialization is one of the ways that doesn't help us create the results we want, doesn't help us have the life experience we want. And in this case, we are talking about a concept that I call happy versus human. And we are socialized. If you look at advertising, if you look at media, so many times they're telling us, hey, buy this thing and it's going to make you happy. Drink this alcohol and you're going to connect with your friends so you can have more happiness. And so we think, we are taught, that it's modeled for us many times by our families, like that we need to be happy. The goal is to be happy. But let's look at how that happens, how we're kind of socialized to do this. So we're socialized to believe if we're not happy all the time, something has gone wrong. And we have all of the books, all of the movies, oh, she gets the perfect guy, happy endings. We have the store, we have the apps, we have, happiness in a box delivered right to your door. One click easy. We have all of the goal of getting married, the goal of having kids is to be happily ever after. We do a lot of overing, and this is numbing emotions when we aren't happy, thinking that we're supposed to be happy. I think one of the things that makes us most unhappy is thinking that we should be happy all the time. And we see this on social media so much, people showing up saying, it's everyone's most wonderful things, which is beautiful, but there's also not so wonderful things. But when we look at other people's social media, we think, oh, yeah, I wish my life was like that. There's a tiny example in the story I'm going to tell that I was doing a trip with some of my friends. And this was, I don't know, about 6 years ago now. And I brought some journals. We were going to do some heart work journaling. And I took out my journals and my friends started oohing and aahing. And I'm like, oh, y'all think everything in these journals is beautiful and inspiring. So I delighted in opening to angry pages. I delighted in opening to pages where I was figuring out like how to stop being codependent. Pages where I was processing sorrow. And I loved it. And for a little while after that, I started posting on my social media, here are some ugly pages. Here are some pages that actually make the beautiful pages possible. And it's the same thing with our emotions and happiness. Okay, so overing is like over drinking, over shopping, overeating, overworking. Instruction manuals. In order to try to be happy all the time, we have instruction manuals for other people and for ourselves. So this is a concept that I really teach in Heartwork Journaling University, but in a nutshell, an instruction manual is the unwritten and most often uncommunicated rules and regulations that somebody else, how they need to behave in order for me to be okay or feel better. So it could be about a person, it could be about a job, it could be about yourself. Here's another way that we try to be happy, and it's pretending. I used to be a huge pretend person, and my little cardboard cutout happy mask used to come into all the rooms in front of me. So I would pretend things are great while I was all tense and not great on the inside. And that's one of the ways that we try to show up, because we think that being happy is the goal. Social media reality, where, oh, we're all happy. And then happy beauty cream. Look 25 forever, because that is what will make you happy. It's been really interesting. I turned 57 a few months ago, and I do my lashes. And other than that, I don't do anything else. And it's just been so fun working with like the wrinkles, working with like the crepey skin, and loving myself and liking myself through it. I remember one day I went to a store, and it was high noon in Texas, so the sun is very bright, and I had shorts on, and I looked down and I saw dimpling that I didn't used to have on the top of above my knee. And I realized, I was like, oh, in the past I would have had a shame storm, I would have gone home and changed. And this time I said, this is me. This is me right now. I will never be as young as this ever again, and I'm gonna love this person. And I went into the store, and it just showed me how much work I'd done on myself, because I used to be a crazy perfectionist around things like that. And aging, it can be such a beautiful teacher. Okay, a full human life is not happy all the time, and it includes a variety of emotion. And I love this little doodle that says it all. Wait a second, I do want to feel it all. I do want to feel all the emotions. So for example, this looks like sitting with your true feelings, acknowledging them. For me, for example, sitting with grief instead of sitting with a second plate of pasta. This is the sadness of a friend moving away. You want to feel that. This is the butterflies of a new love. New love is fantastic, and it also comes with so much uncertainty. We don't want to miss that. That's part of it. World events that you want to feel sad about. There are things that happen in the world that I want to feel angry about, and sometimes anger can be an amazing resource and get us into action. I don't want to be all happy when I see people suffering or animals suffering. The bittersweetness of a child moving away. Many of you may have been feeling this in the last few months. So there's your kid that you grew up. They got all their boxes and everything, and they're leaving. They're super excited. They're flying out of the nest. And for you, that brings up all kinds of emotions. But this is a beautiful thing. And actually, this means you did a great job, because your kid isn't in the basement. You did a beautiful job, and it's full of all of the emotions that you would think don't fit together: joy and excitement for the child going to create a new life and have new experiences, and also sadness and bittersweetness and loneliness. And those things are beautiful, and you want to feel them instead of numb them and think that this shouldn't be happening. Yes, it should be happening, and it's a beautiful part of life. Here, this is the birth of a child in the family. This, for me, had so many different emotions. I went through infertility, and there have been a lot of babies in my family, and many times the birth of a child in the family, for me, it had joy, but it also had grief, and it had sadness, it had envy, and I got to feel all of that and not make myself wrong for feeling it. Anytime you feel any emotion, you don't have to make it a character flaw. It's just an emotion, and it's trying to tell you some information. Tomorrow we'll look at what kind of information it's trying to tell you. Okay, what else is part of a full human life that feels all kinds of emotions other than happy? If you want to be a leader, if you want to be a teacher, if you want to start a business, this is you stepping up as a leader. I have something to say. I want to lead. These are the anxious butterflies of getting out of your comfort zone. The end of a relationship. Any relationship you have is going to end in some way or another. I remember speaking with a person a few years ago who did not want to have a relationship. They wished they could have one, but they didn't want to go through the end of a relationship. So they had just decided, wall off, not going to do it. I was that person too. After getting divorced, I had decided I'm never doing that again. That was too painful. And I'm so glad I opened myself up to a new relationship. My husband is the COO of my business, which is amazing. We get to work together, which is so fun. But any relationship you have, somebody is going to pass away, or there might be a rupture in the relationship and you part. Is that grief, is that sadness worth having had the relationship? I say yes. Grief at the loss of a loved one. The awe of a beautiful moment in time. For example, when you go on an amazing vacation with friends and it's coming to an end. You're watching the last sunset, or you're in the last moments of being together, and you know that it's going to be a long time. Those are beautiful moments also. A full human life is looking at what's in the way of your results. This is one of the things we work with a lot in Heartwork Journaling University, having a look at ourselves and figuring out what are my true thoughts and emotions that are behind my current results, that are creating my current results, that are stopping me from creating the new results I want. And creating new results, I think, requires thinking new thoughts and allowing yourself to feel new emotions. Anger and injustice, these are things we want to feel. The discomfort of going for a big goal. Here's a little medal for going on a marathon. I ran a few marathons, and that involved loneliness, involved discipline, all kinds of things other than happiness. So let's do our last doodle for today, and it's called Life is a Balance. It's a quick doodle because we only have a few minutes anyway. And so we're going to do a circle, and this is called Life is a Balance. So let's do our circle. And then we're going to create a yin-yang symbol. And so we're going to have like a little, almost like a S going through our circle, and try to make the sides even. But if you don't, it's not a big deal either. And so we're going to label one side good feeling emotions and the other side bad feeling emotions. And I do have to say, sometimes people say, why do you label some good and one bad? I'm labeling them bad feeling in my body emotions to distinguish them, or good feeling in my body emotions to distinguish them. I'm not making like a moral judgment of these are good or bad emotions, because there are no emotions that are good or bad. They just are. And again, they're giving us very important information. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. But all emotions are valid and important. So you may want to label it as yucky feeling emotions, or yay feeling emotions, or positive or negative, or good or bad. But we're just talking about the ones that feel good in your body or feel bad in your body, not about a moral judgment. Okay. So I'm going to put good feeling. And bad feeling emotions. And what happens when we don't allow ourselves to feel bad feeling emotions? Well, we actually put a new layer of stuff that expands the bad feeling emotions. And this happens when we use false pleasures to numb our emotions. And I want you to think about yourself. What are your go-to false pleasures when you don't want to feel? Some of them, for me in the past, have been wine. We don't drink anymore in our household, but for me, it used to be wine, also sugar. It could be shopping for some people, so I'm going to put shopping. And if you want to put what they are for you in the questions, that would be great. One that I see a lot is sleeping. People have shared that a lot. Oh, perfect. Mary says scrolling. Oh, yes. Daisy just put that too. Daisy actually made it even better. Doom scrolling. Perfect. That's so good. Too much TV, screen time. Work. Oh my goodness. That used to be me also, overworking. It could be, maybe for some people, it is drugs or procrastination. Some people, it is cleaning and organizing. And what I want you to note is there are things that we feel could be good, like cleaning and organizing or working. We think that, hey, who doesn't want to be clean and organized? But this is a problem when we are using these things to avoid feeling emotions. So for example, I used to use work to avoid feeling insignificant. I used to use work to avoid feeling like I wasn't enough. So almost anything can be used to numb emotions. So, and then we're gonna overbooking social activities. I'm gonna put that one. Thank you all so much for sharing. And now I want to invite you to use two different colors. So I usually use a color, one of my favorite colors for the good feeling emotions, and a color that's not one of my favorite colors for the other. And what we're looking at here is when we try to avoid the bad feeling emotions by using false pleasures, we actually increase the negative, the net negative in our lives. Andrea says, isolate. Yes, I have done that one too. Yeah, isolate, because it's almost easier than feeling the emotions of showing up the way we want to in our lives. And I just want you to think and ponder this until the next time we meet, which is tomorrow. What if you could allow yourself to feel any emotion and you didn't use your go-to false pleasures to avoid emotions? What if you could think that your body was made to feel, nothing has gone wrong, and emotion won't actually kill you? What would be possible for you then? I think that's an amazing question to leave y'all with, and I hope that you had fun today. Tomorrow we're going to be looking at Emotions 101, and we're going to be doodling your emotions. We're going to doodle some emotions that are some of the ones that people ask for the most, and I will see you here tomorrow. don't forget, if you want to apply for the HJU scholarship, to do that, and actually didn't mention this, apply for the scholarship before tomorrow, Saturday, September 28th at 9 a.m. Central, and I will be announcing who gets the scholarship on tomorrow's call. I've had so much fun with you. Thank you so much for showing up, for making marks on the page, and I can't wait to see what we do together tomorrow. See you then.